We buy things we don't need, with money we don't have, to impress people we don't like, says Dave Ramsey. Over the course of a century, we've gone from living relatively simple lives to finding ourselves at the nexus of vast transcontinental trading routes, no matter where in the world we happen to live. Thanks to the internet and to highly evolved supply chains, each of us can purchase and have shipped to us almost anything from almost anywhere in the world. This is in contrast to our grandparents' time, when people often spent entire lifetimes building up a beloved collection of possessions. Now, in the age of consumerism, when Amazon can deliver a package to your door, when you can source jewelry or clothing from the other side of the world for just a few dollars, or stock up on cheap electronics at your local supermarket, it's difficult to invest much innate worth in each item that enters the home. Today, it's easy to accrue a lifetime worth of stuff in just a few years or even months. As philosophy of minimalism says, for a large proportion of the Western world, there is no longer an economic obstacle to having the illusion of luxury. In the developed world, possessions are now so numerous that an entire industry has grown out of the necessity to contain them all. In the USA, the self-storage sector is worth $24 billion. Given that the average US household now owns 3,000 items, it's not surprising that we're having difficulty containing all our things in our own homes. Annie Leonard says in her movie, The Story of Stuff, every item produced during this extraordinary age of consumerism, which got underway in the last century, has to be disposed of at some point. Some of these items will decompose into organic matter, or may be recycled into other goods, but a huge proportion will simply sit motionless under its own weight long after its working life is over. And it's we who are fueling this tide of consumer goods, with our demand for personal electronic gadgets, cheap household goods, and cheaper clothes too. Philosophy of minimalism says the most productive new habit we can form is doing nothing. That is, the habit of not shopping for clothes, toys, or gadgets, and so reducing the number of items we bring into our homes every year, cutting down on the number of tank tops we acquire every season, asking relatives not to give our children plastic toys as gifts, holding off for another year before upgrading a smartphone. All of these actions would go some way toward preventing the accumulation of stuff in our homes, and if replicated across the board, would begin to chip away at demand for such items. After all, it's only because we, as consumers, create a demand for consumer goods that clothes, plastics, and electronics are available to us in such vast quantities. For example, in the USA, the average smartphone ends up being in use for just 2 years, not because it stops working, but because its owner is persuaded to upgrade to the latest model. According to some reports, at this rate of consumption, the average US citizen is likely to own 29 handsets over the course of their lifetime. Clearly, this level of consumption, in terms of the use of the Earth's resources, is almost impossible to sustain at the rate we're going. So, in terms of a fresh definition of materialism, it can be useful to consider which items we really need to buy. Sociologist and economist Juliet Schor has urged consumers to engage in true materialism, that is, the recognition of the innate value of individual material goods. Juliet Schor says, we would be less inclined to junk smartphones and clothes and toys as frequently as we do if we appreciated the craftsmanship that went into making them and noted the material resources that were harvested to manufacture them. It means that we sometimes fail to appreciate that almost every item that comes into our possession by way of the retail process has been the culmination of effort and labor, whether it's in mining, manufacturing, transport, marketing, or product development. Schor argues, restoring some of this respect to the process may result in slowing down mindless consumerism. One philosophy that can help us in this is the philosophy of minimalism, as minimalism is about being intentional about what you allow into your life, thinking about what should be there, and perhaps saying goodbye to certain objects or people that no longer belong. However, it's less about the absence of things and more about bringing intentionality into your thinking and into your actions, and devising a system of mindfulness for how you choose the things around you. As author Greg McKeown says, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And in this age of consumerism, sadly, marketer prioritizing for us, it doesn't help that an entire industry has developed around the concept of making consumers feel they should buy more and more things, whether they need them or not. Back in the 19th century, philosopher and psychologist William James wrote about the extent to which humans identify with their material possessions. William James wrote, "A man's self is the sum total of all that he can call his, not only his body and his psychic powers, but his clothes, house, family, friends, works, property, and bank account. All these things give him the same emotions. If they wax and prosper, he feels triumphant, and if they dwindle and die away, he feels cast down." Many of us have fallen into this trap. Studies of burglary victims noted, people who have had their property stolen compare their experience to an attack on their identity or sense of self. We human beings are programmed to try to make sense of our world by attaching meaning to events and objects. These things may have little monetary value, but they may mean the world to us because they represent a relationship with a loved one, remind us of special experiences, or illustrate how far we have traveled in life. This isn't a design fault in humans. It's something to be celebrated. Over thousands of years, our ability to invest objects with symbolic meaning has enabled us to create art. For example, Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa is more than an accomplished portrait. It represents the apotheosis of the maestro's skills and points to a high watermark in Western civilization. However, problems arise when we fail to discriminate between which objects are truly meaningful and which ones we're hanging on to or hankering after, simply because they have become an outward expression of our own inner worth. It's time to ask, should we attach the same level of meaning to a CD by a band we passingly admired a decade ago, to a photograph of our parents on their wedding day? And should you allow your dearest possessions, these emotional touchstones, which represent milestones in your personal history, to be swamped by extraneous household items, useless paraphernalia that found its way into your home, or cheap junk that was bought on a whim? It's time to make room for your future self and for the life that you really want. The 19th century British designer William Morris once wrote, "Have nothing in your house that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful." It's a dictum that serves us well more than a century later. For a minimalist, every item in the home must earn its keep. It must either contribute something to one's life or bring considerable joy. According to William Morris, there's something very appealing about living your life in surroundings where everything plays a role. Although the thought of a thorough declutter can be intimidating, think about the space that will be restored to you. Think about your most precious possessions emerging from under the tide of junk and finally finding a place in your life. And as you go into the future, make a promise to yourself that whatever comes into your home will be brought in because of its purpose in your life, not simply because it's the latest gadget or because everybody you know has one like it. Let the possessions you surround yourself with be of service to you personally, whether it's on a practical basis or because it holds a particular meaning for you. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more empowering content. Thanks for watching.